Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, First Impressions Matter, Build a Resume that Wows. I'm Greg Berry, Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. As is the case with any virtual setting, please excuse issues that may pop up. If you have problems with your video or audio, click Reconnect or refresh your screen to get back to the presentation quickly. A quick question to start. What's the primary goal for your resume right now? Your options are landing your first job, advancing to a higher position, transitioning to a new industry, returning to the workforce, or seeking freelance or consulting opportunities. If it's something else, go ahead and just drop that in the chat and let us know. I'm going to go ahead and keep that poll up for a little bit so you can select the best answer that represents your situation. For our live attendees, we are recording today's webinar. Once it's been uploaded onto our website, we'll make sure to send an email with the link. We're excited to have two members of the Clatts School of Business Career Center with us today. Rita Stewart-Hampton is director of Clatts Career Center and has been at UAB since 2010. Previously, she worked at Kellogg's, where she managed a team in the Southeast. She has an undergraduate degree in marketing from Jack State and MBA from North Alabama. Tristan Buie is assistant director of student engagement in the Clatts School of Business Career Center. Prior to joining UAB in 2019, he worked for Regions Bank and the University of South Alabama. He earned his bachelor's degree in human resource management, MBA, and certificate in academic advising, all from UAB. Before I turn things over to today's guest, here are the results of the earlier poll. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll right now. And it looks like 52% say they are looking to advance into a higher position. That's the number one result. Transitioning into a new industry and seeking freelance or consulting opportunities are at 14%. Fourth place, returning to the workforce. Now, as we begin, just a follow-up question. What is your biggest concern about your resume? Lack of experience, gaps in employment, outdated skills, overqualification, standing out in a competitive market. Again, if it's something else, let us know what it is in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and keep that up for a little bit as well while we formally welcome Rita and Tristan. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here and joining us on our webinar series.
Oh, thank you, Greg, for having us. We're very excited to be here today. And for all of you out there in webinar land, you could be anywhere else, but you decided to spend your lunch break with us, and we are grateful. So we're going to go ahead and kind of dive into this, building a resume that wows. Tristan and I usually every summer send our resume templates out to industry and get feedback. So this is information that employers, recruiters have talked to us about over the years. So that's how we built this presentation based on what they are telling us. So this first slide we're going to put up is 3 letters, and it is ATS. So as it relates to resumes, has anyone heard of ATS or knows what it stands for? And if you would put your questions into your answers into the chat, Tristan and I will kind of call some of those out, and then we'll talk about a little about what that means in the resume world. So you can type your answers.
I'll admit that those 3 letters, I would have no idea of what they would mean. And that's somebody who, I haven't put that many resumes together, but it's probably something that I need to know, as well as people that are actually here. And Tristan, I do see people are starting to filter in with the chats.
Yes, I do. And it looks like we have about 50-50 of people knowing what it is and not having a single idea. So, yeah.
That's good.
Rita, it looks like for the most part, everybody has a good idea of what it means.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Well, for those of you that say, no idea, you'll know by the end of this webinar. So the ATS system does stand for Applicant Tracking System, and it is a software tool used by many companies to help them manage their recruitment process. As you can imagine, the amount of resumes that come into a recruiter's office. So it acts like a gatekeeper, scanning resumes, for specific keywords, formatting, criteria to see if you are the best fit for that role. So they're using the job description that they have to see if you have some of those keywords on your resume. So it does a lot of key matching. It also looks for compatibility. It also will rank your resume based on the keywords and skills that they're looking for on that job description. So ATS is used by so many Fortune 500 companies, and you can see by this pie chart, 98.4% of Fortune 500 companies use some type of ATS applicant tracking system. And there's many out there. UAB uses Tailor, I think that's how you pronounce it. You've got Greenhouse, you've got Workday, and there's many others out there that many companies are using. So a lot of times when we're talking to students, we're coaching them on, you got to get through the applicant tracking system first, a lot of times before a human even looks at your resume. And we got this information from JobScan. And JobScan is a company that does a lot of research on resume optimization, and they have tools that you can use to help you with your resume to get it through the applicant tracking system. So our next slide actually just gives you a little example. So of course, you know, you're out looking for a new job and you see the job posting out there or the position, and you may be looking for a job as a senior engineer and for a particular company. And that company gets 539 applicants. So that means 539 resumes. So that applicant tracking system is going through those 539 candidates to see who's the best fit. And as you can see on that other column, only 18 were interviewed. So today, and that source is from JobScan as well. So today, what we want to do is kind of help you build a resume that can help you get through that applicant tracking system. So we have two basic learning outcomes today. It's to understand how to build a resume that properly describes your education skills, experiences, and measurable achievements, and also the ATS process, application process in your job search. So now I'm going to kick it over to Tristan, who's going to talk about the resume building blocks that you can use. And then at the end of this presentation, we can answer any questions that you guys have. So I'm kicking it over to Tristan.
Thank you, Rita. So typically when we do this presentation with our undergraduate and graduate students, current students, we will set up a kind of building block of Jenga blocks. I'm sure y'all have heard of Jenga, but essentially it's these little blocks that you build together in a tower form, and then you're attempting to remove one block at a time and not knock over the tower. So when we're talking about a resume, we like to kind of build it based like that. So you've got to start with a good foundation and then be able to build your blocks on top of that without it tumbling over, making sure that you're getting through that ATS system that Rita was speaking about. So imagine a Jenga block, building that Jenga board or tower while you're thinking about building your resume. But for this, since we are virtual and we can't have everyone pull a block from the Jenga tower, what we're going to do is actually, if you guys will, when you're reading the information on the screen, you'll notice Blaze doing a little something at the bottom of the screen. And at the end, he'll have a little surprise for us. So just make sure you're paying attention to him and seeing what he's got going on. He will be building the blocks for us this time around. So to start, like we mentioned, we said, let's start with a strong foundation. You've got to be able to have that foundation built prior to being able to add in your information or being able to piece or figure out what you should even put on your resume, what bullet points are your strongest. So when it comes to a strong foundation, for you all, since you are alumni and have graduated from UAB already, probably have a lot of experience to put on your resume. You are allowed to have it up to 2 pages worth of length. Now remember, we're talking about a resume. We're not talking about a CV. That's a whole different thing with whole different guidelines. But for your resume, you can have it up to 2 pages worth of information. We want to make sure that you keep it clear and concise. So using some quantifiable data, which we'll talk about in a little bit, giving that ability of making it concise and specific to you as the individual and the accomplishments that you have made, but also keeping it clear so that the ATS or applicant tracking system that Rita was speaking about is able to read everything on your resume, because it is an AI system. It's technology. So it's got to be able to read from left to right, just like we would as a human with it in front of us. We want to stay away from certain templates. We'll have an example a little bit towards the end about some templates that you can find on Google, Canva, Adobe, really any of those that are ones that you just want to kind of stay away from, because the ATS system cannot read them. Depending on the format, depending on the fonts, you see the next bullet is no crazy fonts. Depending on the fonts that you use and the color of those fonts, ATS will not read it. And it'll look like your resume is blank in certain spots if you use it for certain things. And then you also want to keep it organized. You want to make sure that the alignment flows, the organization of it flows, and it just all in all kind of reverts back to that strong foundation. If you've got these kind of bullet points throughout and consistently in your resume, once you add in your experience and add in the more precise details of your experience, it should make it through that ATS. Okay, so moving on to our first building block here. So the first part of your resume, and we're going to talk about it kind of in separate pieces like these building blocks, but we will have an example of what a full resume should look like at the end, just so you guys can kind of see it all together. So contact information is your first building block. When it comes to contact information, nowadays they're not really looking for your physical address. They want to see more of your LinkedIn URL, more of your contact information in the sense of your email, phone number, and that LinkedIn. The physical address, the reason they don't want to, I say they, the employers, right? They're not looking for that physical address because it's in your application for the job anyway. So they're wanting to see more of your professional presence in the form of a LinkedIn URL. If you don't have a LinkedIn, I would highly suggest making one. What employers are looking at now is, used to be they would look at your socials, they'd look at your Facebook, your Instagram. LinkedIn is more of the social that they are looking at now. And it just shows your connections, your network, your professionalism as far as, the experience that you have had. So if you don't have one, strongly suggest making one. It's not a make or break, but if you don't have one, it definitely is helpful. Then you want to make sure that your email is professional. For our current students, we suggest they use their UAB email address because that's what they're checking on a daily basis, or at least should be checking on a daily basis. So make sure that your email is professional. You don't want to have some sort of crazy email like vibesonly@hotmail.com, right? We noticed, and we've gotten percentages back about ATS rejecting those, and about 75% of those are rejected if the applicant tracking system sees them as unfit or unprofessional email addresses. It's possible that they're not, but just the combinations of letters make that AI think that they are. So just be careful about that. We also don't want to add pictures to our resume. 88% or more of those are rejected by ATS. Also, we don't want to allow for any sort of discrimination when it comes to our resume or anything of that sort. So leaving your picture off of your resume can avoid that as well. An ATS system can't read an image. So if you have an image on that resume, it's again going to see it as kind of like more of a blank space. Okay. And then you don't want to add any personal or protected information. This is technically your address can fall into this as well, but this is things such as your social security number, like anything like that. We're not adding to our resumes. If they need that information, they can reach out to you separately for it, or they may ask you for it in the job application itself. So that's block one. Okay. Moving on to block two, this is where you kind of start talking more about yourself personally, Okay, so this is part where when y'all answered the poll earlier and you talked about your biggest concern on the resume being standing out in a competitive market, this is a piece of your resume that you can completely customize to you as an individual. A lot of times now, employers aren't really asking for cover letters. And if they're not asking specifically for you to attach a cover letter, the likelihood of they're actually going in and reading your cover letter is slim. Okay. So we want to make sure that there's still a piece on your resume that you are allowing them to see who you are and kind of key points that you would have been putting in that cover letter if you didn't attach one. So this is the block that you can do this in. Okay. The profile and or professional summary, depending on how you have your layout of your resume or the verbiage you like to use. You can use either one of those titles for this section. In this section, you're going to summarize it. You're going to keep it short. These are not full statements. These are not full sentences. They're not I statements, right? So there are 3 to 5 bullet points that are incorporating your skills. You can list 2 to 3 skills in one of them. You can list what do you want to achieve from that particular position that you are applying to. And then you can also closely align them with the job description that you are applying for. As Rita mentioned earlier, when AI or when the ATS system reads your resume, typically speaking, the employer has uploaded a job description and has asked that AI to match the resumes as closely as possible to that job description. So using that job description to plug into your resume, some tidbits from it will actually help boost your resume when it comes to an ATS. Don't lie. Don't tell them something that you don't actually have, right? But there should be pieces of that job description, if you meet the qualifications, that you should be able to pull over. And that's talking about skills, maybe the way that they state the skills or describe the skills. Maybe it's a phrase of like, you know, our version of the best candidate for this position would have the following qualities, and maybe it's a list of things. Pieces of that is what we're speaking about in this professional or profile summary.
And Tristan, I just want to add to think about it like it's your elevator pitch.
Exactly.
You're not in person. This resume is being looked at once it gets to the ATS system. It's being looked at as, by a human. So think of it as your elevator pitch. What would I want them to know about me and pitch that's not already at the bottom on my resume on the other part that makes me unique and that would make me stand out? So think about it as your elevator pitch.
Absolutely. And I noticed in the chat, Sterling, you had a question about if you are looking to change fields, should we include transferable skills there? For example, current epidemiologist, I said it correctly, look at me, and want to go into clinical research. Absolutely.
Yes.
That's exactly where you can include that. If you are changing your industry, or if you have transferable skills that you believe can be an asset to the new position that you're applying for, 100% this is somewhere you can put that. And that can be a bullet by itself, a bullet point by itself, that you're currently in this industry and looking to make a change into this new industry as well.
Right.
Yes. All right. I'm going to move on to block number 3.
Okay.
So block number 3 is professional experience. So this is where we are getting to the point of putting in your specific contributions, but also explaining to them potentially what the job could be about, or excuse me, what your past job or past experience could have been, and explaining what that is. Because potentially not every job title that you're going to put on your resume is something that that current employer that you're applying to is going to understand or know what specifically you did in that job, right? So we want to make sure that we're explaining that to them. So for professional experience, on this screen off to the right, you can see an example of how we have the professional experience laid out. And I apologize, it looks a little blurry. Sorry about that. But what you should still be able to read it. If you're not, we are more than happy at the end. We'll show you the bigger version of, or the actual put together version of this resume. And I think you can see that a little bit clearer. But essentially what we're doing is we're laying it out in a sense that the ATS can read. So if you notice, State Farm is first. That's the company. That's the where we were, right? Then the city and state after that. If it was a remote position and you were based out of a certain city or state, that's the city or state you would put. And then over in parentheses beside it, you could put remote or virtual position. And then over to the far right, you've got the date range. So for this one specifically, I did not include the second position under this, but this individual did 2 positions under State Farm. So the whole time frame that they were there was from January of 2016 to the present. Right under State Farm, you'll notice the job title in italics, and then the next date range, which is when they've done that specific job title. So the other job that's not on here would include the rest of the date ranges. Didn't want any confusion on that piece. After the job title, you'll see that the next, 3 sentences, 3 to 4 sentences are about what that job was and what that individual was responsible for in that job itself. And this is just a description of the job responsibilities, okay, what it typically would have consisted of. Underneath that is selected contributions. So this is where you get to spin it. You get to make this personal to you. This is your accomplishments, your contributions that you gave to this position. And in these contributions, we want to make them as quantifiable as possible. So we are adding that quantifiable information, data, results, percentages, dollars raised. If you did any fundraising in any events or anything of that such, you're adding those numbers into it. And what that is showing the employer that you're applying for the job for, it's showing them that you can show results. You can give results. You have seen that in your past positions, and you want to continue that into the current position as well. Okay. So the bullet points on the left, clear and concise. We spoke about that earlier. No more than 5 bullet points for each. Okay. We want to make sure that your contributions, while you're listing as many as possible, we're also listing the contributions that are relevant to the job that we are applying to, or at least more relevant. They don't have to 100% match it completely, but we want to make sure that we're picking up on things like our transferable skills or soft skills that we may have learned in those contributions in that specific position. Okay. Each bullet point should start with a strong action verb. We love a good strong action verb. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're leading with those. Those are our starts to each of our bullet points when we're writing them out. Tense matters. So if it is a current role, if you are currently doing this job, that means that your verbs that you start each bullet point for should be in present tense. If it is a past position, a position that you've already completed and you're no longer working it, then those action verbs at the beginning of each bullet should be in past tense. I know that seems like a very little thing, but when employers are reading your resume, it allows them to be able to clearly know which one is a current position and which one is a past position. It also helps to make sure that they see what is a potential skill that you've learned in the past versus what you are currently actively using in your current job. And then experiences in your professional experience section should be in chronological order, meaning that they should be listed most recent at the top and then going down to least recent towards the bottom. Rita, do you have anything to add on this professional experience section?
No, just being able to, like I said, quantify everything that you've done and being able to give examples. If you've got something on your resume and you type the bullet, be able to back it up. That's my tip.
Yes, 100%. Make sure that bullet is accurate information. Again, we're not lying. We're not telling them something we didn't do, because it's a potential that they'll ask questions about it. Right. If it's a quantifiable piece of information that relates directly to the new position you're applying for, 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to ask you about it because that's something that you're going to be applying in the new position. So they want to know more. And if it's something that you didn't actually do or wasn't a contribution of yours, they'll probably be able to tell when you start talking about it. Okay.
Right.
So just, yeah. Make sure everything is accurate. All right. So take a pause real quick from the building blocks and from building your resume. And we want to talk about this experience piece and this professional experience piece. You want to get as much experience in your field. I know a lot of you answered that you were considering a career change for the stage of the career that you're in. Maybe even that you want to be promoted into a higher role, any of that, it does come with knowing or having that experience in your field. And earning that experience is a no-brainer. You should 100% have experience in your field if possible. We know that when it comes to career changes, that may not be all the time something that you can control. And this new job that you're applying for may be your way of getting that experience, right? But jobs are different, okay? And when you think about it, the actual duties inside of a job can relate. They're very similar, and they can relate to the current or new industry that you are wanting to go into, okay? So when you're thinking about jobs and you're thinking about what you're doing inside of them, don't think of like the technical day-to-day stuff that you do or the responsibilities. Think about your transferable skills. So think about hard skills, which are also known as your technical skills. What technology are you using? Are you using a computer every day? Are you using a software every day that could potentially be used in your new software? Microsoft Office. Typically speaking, a lot of us use that on a daily basis. Could be used in your new industry, right? Any type of like, if you've had cashier experience or customer service type experience, those come with hard skills such as point of sale systems. They come with the ability to handle cash, right? Cash management. So think about those when you're thinking about your current job and what you could potentially translate into your new position as well. Soft skills are another thing and another transferable skill. Soft skills are things that are not so tangible, right? They're not technical skills. What these are things such as time management, communication, organizational skills, adaptability. Maybe you have the ability to adapt to multiple situations happening at once. So you're being able to multitask, or you can adapt your schedule based on when you're needed. Those sorts of things are soft skills that you are learning no matter the industry. It's just a matter of which ones in which industry and things that can be transferred over to that new industry as well. So make sure that you're...
I'm sorry. I was just thinking about something you said earlier. You said Microsoft Office, and we're talking about the ATS system. And, on that job description, it could say something about Excel, but on your resume, you have Microsoft Office.
Yes.
Well, that's not going to pick up that Excel. So that's why it's so important to really, read that job description. If they have Microsoft Office on the job description, then you have Microsoft Office on your resume. If they, spell each one out, Excel, PowerPoint, then you spell it out. And that will help those keyword matches.
Absolutely. All right, let's see if Blaze is back from lunch. Oh, yes, he is. Okay, time to keep going. So block number 4 is your education and training. Okay, so this is where this piece comes in. Education and training. So when we say training, we're talking about if you've had any specific sort of certification, if you've earned a license, if you had certification maybe in one of your degrees that you earned, anything like that falls into this training category. I think I saw earlier in the chat, someone asked about a nursing number, an RN number. This is where you could put that. Into that training piece or education piece is where that would fall. So again, chronological order, most recent to least recent. have your education listed. We use, of course, UAB because you all are alum. So University of Alabama at Birmingham, we're spelling it out. We love to say UAB, but when it comes to our resume, we want to make sure that that is completely spelled out. And then underneath that listing, what the degrees actually were. So this one, for example, is Master of Business Administration and then has the GPA listed. There's a little rule when it comes to GPAs. If your GPA is not above a 3.5 for your bachelor's, master's, any type of education that you have, don't list it on your resume. They may still ask you for it, depending on the job and depending on how long potentially that you've been out of school or out of completing that education. But if it's not above that 3.5, do not put that on your resume. And then after that, we have coursework. Coursework's not just anything and everything that you took, right? We want to make it relevant. We want to make sure that it is coursework that can either be directly applied to the current job that you're applying for, or it's something that if asked about, you can have some sort of background or story or skill that came from that coursework, okay? So you're not going to put things like science if you're a business major. That wasn't relevant, right? Potentially. That's not quite relevant to what you're doing. So we want to make sure that that coursework is a relevant piece of information. Okay.
So Tristan, I have a couple of points on this. For so many on the webinar, a lot of people may have already had a lot of experience, and you're going to see this education and training probably at the bottom of their resume because they have so much work experience, and I'm totally fine with that. Or if you are a person that have come back to school to get your MBA and you want employers to know that you just received your MBA, you may put your education at the top because you have, gotten another degree and you want employers to know about that. For our new grads, we always have them put their education at the top because a lot of new grads, they don't have a lot of work experience. So that's what they're trying to sell to the employer, that I've gotten, a BS degree. But for those of you that have been working and you've managed people and that type of thing, I really think it's okay to move your education and your training to the second page of your resume and really focus on your skills and all the experience that you bring to the table.
Yes. And there is a question in the chat about if it's been 20 years post-graduation, is coursework relevant? Coursework is something that you can put on your resume. You do not have to put this on your resume. I would say for your case, don't worry about it. Put it on your resume. In the type of format that we're looking at right here. Like you don't have to lay out the coursework that you have. Absolutely not. So I want to mention too the dates because we're not putting months on the dates here. We're just putting year. That is something that when it comes to the 2-page resume and with, kind of what Rita was speaking about with your education being towards the end, you don't have to list months, the month that you graduated. If it's, I'd say maybe within like 3 to 5 years, like you don't have to worry about listing that month on there. Okay. That is a little bit of a different layout than what we were talking about for experience.
Or even if you've been in the workforce for a good while, you might not want to list those years out there because a lot of times, employers can see your age and we know, age discrimination is out there. So a lot of times, you want to maybe take those off. And that's why we believe, your resume is so personal. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes with the block number 5. One thing we don't want you to do is send the same resume out for every job that you apply to. And I may be going ahead, Tristan, on your block number 5. So
yeah, no, you're good. You're good. So just remember when it comes to education and training, list it as most recent to least recent. Your training can be mixed in with your education piece because that's this whole block that we've got here. So we still want to list them in chronological order. even if some training or certifications come between your bachelor's or master's or 2 bachelors that you have, they don't have to be grouped together because we're listing that in that chronological order. And you can see that here on this example with the master's degree. And then we've got some training pieces. And then we have our bachelor's of science from JSU. So just think about it that way when you're sorting everything and putting it into your education and training chronological order, just as usual. All right, we're going to move on to block 5, which Rita kind of hinted towards anyway. So block 5 is personalizing your resume. I've said it a couple times throughout this presentation in this webinar. Don't lie about your accomplishments. You can see our little meme over on the right-hand side. Hey, can you put together an in-depth Excel spreadsheet? On your resume, it said you were proficient. And we're looking like, yeah, I said that. Yep. Let me Google that. Let me AI, let me ChatGPT that real quick, right? So we don't want to lie about any accomplishments, leadership positions, or skills that we may have had or may not have had, on our resume. We want to make sure that those are not on there. But what we can do is after we've listed our education and training, we can add categories that relate to you as the individual and the experiences that you have had. Some examples of this, you can do community involvement or volunteer experience if you've done a lot of volunteering. If you've had a lot of research opportunities, you can make a research category. You could do, I said community involvement, volunteer. Rita, help me out. I'm blanking a little bit.
Achievements, any awards?
Achievements, yes, thank you. Yeah. Awards, accomplishments, anything like that that's going to personalize your resume even more so than you've already done, that you can list, I'd say about 3 to 4 is probably a good number to have a whole separate section for something. If it's just one individual thing, that may be something more so to bring up in the interview versus putting on your resume just because you don't want a whole section devoted to one single bullet point. But if you've got like 3 to 4 different item pieces that you can put into a new section, definitely do it. Definitely, you can add that underneath your education and training pieces as well.
Okay.
Anything else to add to this one, Rita?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Okay, so now we can kind of see the pieces put together. Reminder, this is a 2-page resume. We did not feel like it would look great all on one page together. So this is the first page. So we've got our top block, which is our first one of contact information. Then we have our second block, which is that professional summary. In this version of this resume, it has it written out as a paragraph form. We're still not using I statements. But we are still using that 3 to 5 sentence or bullet point rule. So if you want to list it more in paragraph form, 100% feel free to do so. But you can also list it in bullet point form as well. Underneath that, we've got our next block, which is that area of expertise or skills section. This is where you can list out those soft and hard skills that we were discussing. And these are ones that, along with your professional summary and your areas of expertise section or skills section, these are ones that you can tweak. These may change depending on the job that you're applying for, depending on the job description. This is one area that I myself, and I believe Rita sees as well, this is one that changes most frequently, is because there may be skills that are good for one job that may not be necessarily applicable to the other job that you're applying for, right? So want to make sure that these are the areas that we are tweaking and making sure that they're matching that job description. And then after that, we move on to that professional experience section where we've listed out our jobs and our selected contributions. And then we see Blaze over here is doing something, and he has painted the letters. Look at that. So this is the second page of your resume. You want to make sure in the top right-hand corner, if you'll notice, you want to make sure that you are still listing your name and the page 2. The reason for this is that usually when resumes are printed out, they're not stapled or paper clipped together immediately. So if your second page gets potentially mixed up with other papers, they'll be able to know what it is and where it went. Okay. And then you continue your job, your professional experience underneath that. And then to your education, this is the piece that Rita was speaking of, may come before. It may come before your professional experience, depending on you and how you personally want to lay it out. And when you graduated from anything, or when that last date time frame was, you may want to put this at the beginning versus at the end. And that's completely okay. And then we have an example of the extra category, or block number 5, which is that community involvement down at the bottom. Again, that could be accomplishments, awards, research projects, anything like that that you decide to put on your resume.
Tristan, I just wanted to add in, we did a 2-page resume because, our target audience was alums. So we're assuming that you've got, a lot of work experience and that type of thing. For our grads, our undergrad or early graduates, we do stick to the 1-page resume, but someone just put in the chat about, 30 years of experience. This is a chronological resume. And for someone that has 30 plus years or something like that, we would probably say a functional resume would be better. So that's the type of resume I think you would do, because they mentioned age discrimination. So a lot of people don't want to put the dates on there. We would coach that person to do a more functional type of resume, which looks a little different from the chronological resume.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Rita.
Okay, so I have some notes on this. We've gone through the ATS system, and we've talked about what that system likes and what that system does not like. The system would not like this resume here. So this is one that I would stay away from. We talked about pictures on your resume. We talked about personal pronouns on your resume and that type of thing. It's not that you can't have 2 versions of your resume. So we coach our students, if you're going to a networking event, if you're going to a career fair, you can have a more, especially for marketing students, creative students, art students, they can have a more creative resume. We still don't want the pictures on there, but if you're in person, it's a little different. But most of us are applying for our jobs online, so we have to figure out a way to get through that ATS system. So that's the reason why we coach this type of resume. But we're going to be back next week, because resume is just one part of the puzzle. Next week we're going to talk about networking, but we wanted to make sure at least you had a solid resume. Please do not send the same resume out to every job that you're applying for. I remember when I was applying here at UAB, I was applying for a lot of different places. So I would say Rita Stewart-Hampton, UAB. Rita Stewart-Hampton, Wallace State, Rita Stewart-Hampton, Coca-Cola, because I was trying to target my resume by using that job description. And this was before AI, but I had different versions of my resume. I wasn't just sending out the same resume to every job, because every job it is different. So that was one of the points I wanted to bring up. We just suggest that basic Word document, because if you go on to Canva, as Tristan mentioned, Adobe, everybody has a resume template now. We just say use a basic Word document. And start your resume in there. And we help students all the time build a basic resume from a Word document. And a lot of our students are getting a lot of great jobs because of that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And this next slide, ChatGPT and AI templates. We use ChatGPT, with our students for that first draft. We ask them to create your resume, put it in ChatGPT, see what it looks like for your first draft, and come in and let us work on it. One of the things that as Tristan and I meet with a lot of students with their with their resume, we can tell a Chat GPT resume like that, because the student will start talking to us about their resume, and the way they are talking to us and the way their resume sounds, it's like two different people. And if we can recognize it, a recruiter can recognize it as well. So we, it's a tool. We're not saying to put your resume in there and let ChatGPT just do the whole resume. You don't make any edits or anything like that. So, and some companies have ways of checking to see if you just put your resume in ChatGPT and you did not do anything to personalize it. So it's just a start. It helps you with your spelling, it helps you with your grammar and things like that. But your resume should be your resume, and you should be able to sell that resume without looking at it. Usually the first question that an employer is going to ask you is, tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume. And you shouldn't have to pick up your resume, to read it. You should be able to give them your elevator pitch and walk them through your resume. So it's only a tool that we're telling students, just like all of our other tools that we have to use for your resume. So I think just a couple of more tips, I guess, out there. Remember to proofread. One of the things that Tristan and I like to tell our students is to print their resume, so you can see. A lot of times our students will come in, print their resume. It's supposed to be a one-page resume, and they have one line on the second page. It was like, okay, we need to work on the margins. We got to get it all back on, the one page. Email it to yourself. Just see how it looks. Email it to a friend to see how it looks. Upload it so you can see what that resume looks like when it goes, into these systems. I mentioned this earlier when Tristan mentioned Microsoft Office, making sure that you're spelling out your acronyms. On the you may do business to business sales, and on your resume it may be B2B, but in the job description it says business to business. Well, we need to write it out business to business, or POS, point of sale. It needs to be written out. Just keeping those sections clear and simple is what our employers are telling us. But remember, if you're going to a networking event, a career fair, you can have a little bit more, of some of the headings and different things on your resume, because that person's going to get your resume. We just don't want you having a lot of different things on your resume as it's trying to get through that ATS system. Yeah. All right. Any questions? I'll turn it over to Greg.
You better believe it. There's plenty of questions. So let's go ahead and start. And some of them I'll just say yes or no.
Okay.
And if there's a simple answer, we'll go with it. And the first one is, do you need to make posts on LinkedIn? They have a profile with a large network, but they rarely post.
Yes, you do. And I would suggest that you follow. We coach our students. What are some companies you want to work for? And they'll list out 10 companies. You need to start following those companies, because 9 out of 10, those recruiters are posting their positions on LinkedIn. I did a post, it's been several months ago, but I had met Southwest Airlines at a conference, and I met the recruiter. So I shared their posting and I tagged her, and she sent me a message back and said, Rita, thank you so much for sharing our post, out. So I made a connection immediately just by sharing her post and, following them. So we tell students to follow companies, yes, post. And, if you're interested, if you've done some special research or anything like that, post your research or tag the company that you've done research about. You'll be surprised who will send you messages back.
How do you recommend modifying professional experience for a career pivot or transition?
Yeah, I just believe so many jobs have so many transferable skills. So going back to that job description of what they're looking for and writing down what you have done and trying to marry those two, that's the best advice that I could give. Tristan, you may have some other advice on that.
Yeah, no, I think you spoke to it perfectly. Those transferable skills, it doesn't matter if the industries are different, you're still learning skills that you'll be using to, complete the job in the new industry. I think the biggest thing, like Rita mentioned, was just look at the job description, see what it requires, and pick up on those skills that you could potentially use. The company that you're applying to will see that on your resume, and they'll get what you're trying to say, but using those skills with those contributions and such. So yeah, just lean harder into those skills and kind of relating those the best of your ability to that new job description.
I'm going to combine two at once. So how far back do you go in professional experience, and how many or number of years should be added to the resume?
Yeah, if it's like 30 years or 25, 20 years, I would convert my resume to one of those functional resume instead of using chronological. Going back, we say 5 to 8 years, but maybe not putting everything on your resume, all your jobs. We're trying to personalize that resume and really match what you're doing with the job description. So you may not have to list every job. Hopefully you won't list every job that you've had. So that'll cut some years off of, your resume. You just don't want to list everything. A lot of our students, once they get here at UAB, they don't like it a lot of times, but we say you got to take off all your high school stuff, and they'll say, but I did such great work. I was like, oh, that's wonderful, but that's been 6 years ago. I want to know what you're doing now. So it's that same conversation when you've been in the workforce a long time.
So what if you want to highlight contributions from an interim position? It's not a formal title role. Do they need to differentiate that?
I think they should put interim on there. But if they're doing the job in that job description, most definitely, I think you should get credit for what you're doing. You can just put in parentheses that you're interim assistant director or whatever. But if you're doing that job every day, most definitely you should get credit for it on your resume.
So if you had multiple positions at an employer, and I did this years ago, do you list each position and date range first and then specify your total contributions during your employment, or list all contributions under one or each job title?
I would, if I was here at UAB, I would put my title now. You can put the number of years you've been at UAB, but on each position that you've had here at UAB, you would put the date range, and it actually shows your progression. So if you started off, in housekeeping, and then you went to something else, and you went to something else, it shows, your progression at that one company. But the title of UAB would just be at the top, but you would put your different positions and the years you were in that position, but it shows how you've moved up the ladder.
So when it comes to paid positions through the university, like UAB, they got paid undergraduate research at UAB and did a paid summer internship. Do they count it all as professional experience or training?
I would think so. Yeah. Are they a student?
It's not clear, but if they are, we'll go with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any experience. I mean, we want our students to be paid for their experience, but we know a lot of students do some volunteer work. But any experience is experience, and I think it's good to put it on your resume if it's relevant.
So, boosting the question about date of graduation because of ageism. I know you mentioned go ahead and modify things. Just refresh what you had said about that when you said it.
Yeah, it's a totally different format, because right now what Tristan and I did, we did the chronological. So, you start with your most recent and you back down. We would probably restructure that resume a little bit, and it's called a functional resume. So we would use that format versus the chronological. You still have to put some dates on there, but it kind of, not trying to hide it, but it doesn't stick out as much if it's a functional resume.
What if you won an award like Outstanding MBA Student? I'm assuming you include that.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. I put that under, you could put it under awards if you had an award category, but you could also just put it under your education.
Next one, I'm going to ask Tristan, because I know he's got both of these from UAB. If you get a certification after the master's degree, what do you list first?
If the certification comes after the master's, then you're listing the certification first. It's that chronological order, most recent to least recent. Yes, I have my master's, and then after I got my master's, I earned my certificate in academic advising. But that's the thing that comes first on my resume, and then the master's is underneath it as well.
Mm-hmm. And
Now,
a twist to that, Greg, he could actually put another category
I could
on his resume and just have certifications and start, because if I know Tristan, that's not the first one he's going to earn.
Well, I was gonna follow that up with, it is a program where I can earn another master's and combine 2 certifications. So once I start the other certification, then it will combine into a master's degree as well. So yeah, there's different ways you can do it, but if it's just one certification that you have and you don't have any more, then you can list that one first and then follow it with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
When you find a position on LinkedIn and a recruiter is listed for the role, do you have any tips in engaging them?
You want to take this one, Tristan?
Sure. Go for it. 100%. Message them.
Yes.
Give them a message. If they've got an email listed, you are more than welcome to just email them. But if you would like to message them through LinkedIn, 100% go for it. It doesn't hurt anything. If you're not contacting them and not reaching out to them, it's just as if you got a no from them, right? They don't know you exist if you haven't reached out potentially. So yes, message them on LinkedIn, give them a week or so. They may not check their LinkedIn every single day. So give them, 7 to 10 days ish. And then if they haven't reached out and they do have another form of contact, you're welcome to email them on that as well, or call them, either way, whichever contact information they have, just to kind of follow up and say, hey, I reached out on LinkedIn, but I know you may not check it all the time. I'd really like to set up a time to chat or go grab a coffee if you're interested. I have questions about XYZ. Absolutely message them.
Is there a certain format we should be saving our resume before uploading? PDF, Word, does it matter?
Good question. Yes, PDF, 100%. So that way you can for sure know that nothing is changing. Your formatting is not moving around. Your template's not changing. Weird spacing isn't happening. So PDF, absolutely, if you can.
Somebody's saying that they're in a niche field, acoustics, and they're a recent grad. Should they hire a resume coach?
Are they a graduate of UAB?
They are.
Then they should use their career center.
Yes, your career centers are still open to you as alumni as well.
So Tristan and I take care of all the business students, and then there is a career center at Hill Student Center, and they will take care of and then there's one in engineering. Engineering has a career center, and then there's one in Hill that will take care of helping him, so he doesn't have to pay out of pocket.
And there are questions just filtering in, and there's a lot of them. So I apologize. We're just not going to be able to get to all of them just because we want to be respectful of the time of our guests, as well as I know people are going to be jumping off here in a moment because their lunch hour is over. But I think, Joan, you asked, let's see, you have a template to share. You can probably find that on the resource pages from the Career Center. And she also asked, can we submit a resume? And I think we answered that. There's 3 career centers on campus: engineering, classical business, as well as the overall one in the Hill Student Center as well. Rita, Tristan, it's been fantastic. We had great engagement today with the questions from our audience. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and being with us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So welcome. And for our live audience, this session was recorded. Once it's uploaded onto our website, we'll send an email to you with the link. Rita's going to be back next week for another webinar, and we're looking forward to it, this time with Andrea Steckman. Come back for Acing the Interview, Essential Tips for Alumni in Today's Job Market. That's going to be Tuesday, April 15th at noon. The final in our most recent The Science of series will welcome Dr. Sophia Bees on May 20th for The Science of Sugar, Sweet Secrets Uncovered. On June 5th, Ryan Schobel will join us for Recognizing and Avoiding Fraud Schemes 2025. And on July 15th, join us for Moving Towards Plant-Based Milks. Are they healthier? With clinical dietitian Sharon Smalling. You can register for these and more at alumni.uab.edu/events. events. If you're looking for something to do this Saturday, join us in Crestline Village or virtually for our 19th annual scholarship run presented by Viva Health. Online registration closes tomorrow night for the in-person run, but on-site signups reopen Saturday morning. For more information, visit alumni.uab.edu/run. Finally, let us know how we're doing. What did you think about today's presentation? What would you like to see in the future? The QR code on your screen takes you to a short survey where you can give us feedback. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, go Blazers.